All right, everybody, welcome back to the AP Roundtable. I'm AJ Bianco, one of your co-hosts today. Got a great panel with us tonight. We have some topics we want to talk about that may seem controversial, but in reality, these are some important topics. We're going to talk about current events and how we can talk to our students and even our staff about what's going on. I know some people shy away from current events, but you know what? With what's going on all around us, there's a lot of things we need to talk about, a lot of things to set the record straight on. So that's going to be the conversation tonight. So before we get into the conversation, let me introduce you to these outstanding assistant principals from all over. As mentioned, I'm AJ Bianco, assistant principal here in New Jersey at middle school level. And I'm going to kick it over to my co-host, first of all, Mr. Ryan Scott. Ryan, what's going on?
Hey, how are you guys? Ryan Scott here from beautiful Western Kentucky. It was a great day. It was actually above freezing today. So, yeah, it felt like spring, which is always an amazing day. Yeah, so I'm a high
Mhm.
school assistant principal. Yeah, life is good, and I am super, super happy to be here talking with two extraordinary APs and two um, average APs. But I'm not going to tell you who the average are. I'll let you figure that out. But yeah, it's great to be here this evening. How
Oh,
about
that's
you,
me.
Bobo? Talk about you.
Hi, Michael Bobo. I'm from the sunny state of Florida. Dude, beautiful day, 76 degrees. Can't beat it. In in like March. I don't shy away from it, dude. I love it. I used to live in DC, hated it. Now I love it down here. Been administrator for many years, but I just love the educational system and these talks to be able to really have some real conversations. So I'm just glad to be here.
Awesome. All right. So I am Trace Brown Warrens. I'm an AP here in Portland, Oregon, where it was raining all day. Definitely messed up my hair. Today was a really interesting day. And I'm also a doctoral student at Baylor University.
Hmm.
All right. Everybody, Michael Val here, coming back at you. I'm an assistant principal here, 11 years in Massachusetts, where it's just cold all the time in the winter. So we're just gonna go with that. And so, like AJ said before, we're gonna talk about some things today that, like I said, could seem controversial, but I think it's just needed to have a discussion about. So we want to just talk about throw out the topic of current events, right? Our students see and
Hmm.
hear things on all different platforms from all different levels. We had a show, not too long ago on social media, and kind of what those algorithms are like, and what those kind of the AI on the other side of the screen pointed back at you, what that actually does, to some of these kids, and what it is as a bit of an addiction. Some of our students and some of the people in throughout the world, really, that's some of their only sources of information. If you get a Myanmar, for an example, if you get a cell phone over there, it's automatically loaded for Facebook. That's your internet. That's what you have. That's what you believe is true. So we have a lot of these things that are going on throughout here in the United States, worldwide. Ukraine and Russia, obviously a hot topic. There's all social, domestic things that we have here in the United States as well. And I was walking down my hallway the other day, and a social studies teacher had stopped me. And I used to teach social studies for 7 years here in my hometown. So he's like, Mike, I know you're a history guy. Do you mind hopping in on this conversation? I said, no problem. And these students were just spitballing all of these ideas and all of these things. And some were, talking about what they heard at their home. Some were talking about what they read. Some were talking about what they saw on the news. And they all felt, for the people of Ukraine. And half the time they wanted to, do something about it. And the other half were kind of like, okay, but if we do that with there, we're going to have to do that everywhere. So what kind of
Hmm.
platforms do we have in our buildings for students to voice their opinion on all of the current events that come into our buildings? What are you guys ever experiencing going, kind of in your buildings yourself, and what kind of things are you hearing out there about current events from either you talking about your faculty perspective, or you talking about students directly, where I had to kind of go into a class and co-teach with a teacher and kind of move on from there? Just throw it out there for anybody who wants
Well,
to take the time.
I actually did an observation this week and teach. I walked into a teacher's classroom and they were actually talking about the Russia and Ukraine situation. And what this teacher did is he showed newspaper clippings from three different countries. So, what is Russia saying? What is Ukraine saying? And what is the US saying?
Mhm.
And so the kids got to analyze the different perspectives. Now, the element that I would have added is some type of graphic organizer for students to categorize their information so that then at the end they can synthesize that to come to their own conclusion. And I think that's what's most important, is that they're going to get conversations, they're going to get opinions, but what system do they have to synthesize that information to be able to say, this is what I feel and this is what I believe? And I think that's the piece that's missing. And I think that's what people are scared about. But that our classrooms are think tanks, they're learning tanks. And if they're not getting it from us, they're going to get it from the world. And if we don't teach them how to synthesize it and analyze it, then they're going to be making connections that might not be real.
They
And
create
they
their
don't know
own.
where to go and how to, yeah, they just create it themselves.
It's
Yeah.
almost like the lateral reading, right? When you're doing a online project. If you're looking at the primary source, you want to look up that source. You want to contextualize it. You want to corroborate. You want to make sure that you're using it in context from where it was from that time period, right? You're doing all these.
Right.
We used to call it SC cubed, right? So it would be source, contextualize, corroborate, and I'm going to blank on that last C. Close read. Close read. And you take that concept and you bring it in, and now you can critically think about these. I think about the same thing with media. If you take Fox and CNN, but you got to throw like a BBC, British Broadcasting System in there. You got to throw a different perspective in there, right? Yeah. And then now you have something to juxtapose. Like you said, Trinice, now you can synthesize and start to create critical thought. What are your thoughts now that you've seen these three different angles and that sort of thing? I really like that idea as far as, kind of ideas for, new kind of ways of looking at current events in that realm.
Yeah.
So
when I was in the classroom, I used DBQ, and part of the DBQ is they had buckets. Yeah, so like having like buckets of ideas. So that's also another thing to conceptualize. If you have smaller kids, is here's my buckets of ideas that I can put them in. But that's all I got.
Bobo, do you have something you wanted to say?
Well, it's interesting to me because we want it to happen in the classroom, but the reality is a lot of times it does not happen in the classroom. It happens outside of the classroom, in the cafeteria, in the holding areas, things of that nature, right? So I've had a lot of students come to me because the type of school I'm in is a higher social economic, and we have about 10-15% of minorities in the school. But most of my kids are saying, Mr. Bobo, are they going to bomb us? That's what their concern is, because they're seeing all this stuff because that's what they see, social media everywhere, right? So how do we make them feel safe, seen, and secure while they're even at school? Because that's when they're away from their parents. So we're talking about platforms, talking about the situations, but the reality is we are the platforms, the people that are talking to us, like the adults on campus having these conversations with these kids. So then not only are they having a conversation, so I always try to relate it to something that has happened before, wars that have happened before, but also what is happening now that we're able to still be safe in our home, safe in our neighborhoods, things of that nature. So then they can feel confident in, man, at least I feel safe. Because the reality is these things are going to happen because we're living in this world. We never know what's going to happen. But how are we going to make our students feel comfortable and safe while they're there, right? Because the platforms are, like we talked about, the platforms are everywhere. We can't control all that. But we can make sure that they feel that safety while they're talking about situation by the knowledge, like giving them knowledge. Because what I've been hearing too is we want to give them the knowledge and the understanding, not just talk about our opinion. Right. So that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think, and maybe a bigger thing to this is, I don't know where you guys are at, but we're hearing a lot about, profile of a graduate. We're hearing a lot about like the 5 C's, what our business is screaming that they need from our graduates, right? And one of those things is critical thinking, and one of those things that comes along with it is just being able to have the civic discourse, to be able to discuss tough concepts where people don't get emotionally charged. And my opinion, here's my opinion. Ryan's got opinion. We have an entire generation, and I would say everybody on this call is part of that generation, where No Child Left Behind effectively um, put social studies in a box that it was only important for the tested grades. And so now we have an entire
Mhm.
generation that has zero concept about how to talk about social studies, how to talk about hard concepts, and literally society is screaming for educators to be able to churn out kids that can have those conversations. But you
Mhm.
can't have those conversations, like Bobo says, unless you create a safe environment where it's okay for kids to disagree, where the teachers maybe not stating their opinion, but they give the different sides. And I like what Laval was saying about being able to give some sort of structure to the conversations. You know, so yes, we need to be talking about these tough conversations, whether it's through ELA, whether it's through social studies. Where I'm at, it's hard to talk about evolution without having one or two parents call in and complain because you're talking about evolution. Um, but also at the end of the day, we are the educated people, and facts are facts. And I'm not going to shy away from facts. You know, there are
Yeah.
certain things in our history that 90% of the country would say are wrong. And I'm sorry if you're that 10% and sorry, don't want to talk about it.
No, and I think in our classrooms we
I
want to welcome those conversations, but at the same point,
yeah.
educators are scared to do that right now. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
educators are
Mhm.
afraid to say how they feel, or even allow kids to ask questions because they don't want that phone call of why did you welcome this topic, in our schools? How does this have to do with anything in the curriculum? The different bills that we were talking about pre-show here, all these different bills that are being passed to really mess around with education, to get rid of public schooling so that there's more school choice. It's becoming very dangerous. You want to create a classroom environment that is safe and respectful, and you want kids to speak their minds. But as soon as they go and share an idea that they had, you know we're going to get phone calls. And I'm saying we
yeah,
as APs. you
yeah.
know and this is
Right.
what I was just thinking. I don't know what your experience is. Have you had a situation where a parent or a family has kind of gone over the teacher's head based on the conversation and came to you with a complaint? Like, that's
Yeah.
we how do we defend that? We're going to defend our teachers no matter what the situation is, no matter where our stance is. We're going to say we let our teachers teach how they teach, and speak how they want to speak, and share the information that is out there. They're not, hopefully
Mhm.
not, spreading anything that's part of an agenda, but it's based on, as Ryan just said, the education they have and the facts that they're bringing in. So, we're kind of stuck as a school. Like, we're looked at as
Yeah.
right now babysitters, and we're not looked at as a place where we're going to help our kids grow, critically think, and dive deep into world's problems and how we're going to solve them. I told my kids when I was a social studies classroom teacher, history repeats itself, and you're the ones who are going to make the changes. And you can see it more and more as our days go
Yeah,
on, whether it's
yeah.
politics, whether it's war, whether it's economics. Like, things are starting to cycle back, and we need to make those changes immediately.
Mhm. As like you're talking, I'm thinking about campus-wide systems, like as APs. Now that we know, like we need opportunities for students to talk, have we considered what campus initiatives we can give for structured conversations? Is there an instructional strategy that as a campus we can buy into so that students are having that opportunity to have those critical conversations? Because when I was a social studies teacher, our speaking was really huge in my district. And so we use QSSA. We use structured debates, right? So where you had to frame your argument and then you had bounce stems so that you could collaborate and speak with each other. So I think it comes back to how are we as APs implementing some instructional strategy so when those teachers or when those parents do call on our teachers, not only can we quote the board policy, which is what I always go back to, but then I can also go back to our campus initiatives and this is what we're doing, and then going back to those 5 C's, like this is what your child is expected to do when they get to Stanford and Harvard that you envision them going to. They don't get to be underneath a rock and a shell. They have to be able to talk about these issues. right? And so we want to make sure that they're prepared. So those are the ways that I address those things is board policy, our campus wide systems, and how we're preparing their children for the future that they want them to have. Because these tough conversations have to happen.
Yeah, well said, Trinice. And I think, between, my man Moriarty here was coming up with the soapstone, right? Speaker, occasion,
Mm-hmm.
audience, purpose, subject, tone, method. I mentioned SE cubed, source, contextualize, close read, corroborate. These are structures that we can give to our teachers that they at least have a platform, a structure. And we can say that, okay, yes, this was brought
Yeah.
up. It was brought up in this context. It was brought up to address, the current events that were going on. And as an academic educational institution, we did not ignore it. That being the most important
Right.
part. Yes, we're a public school. Yes,
Right.
the opinions are there. We cannot, and I can't say this enough, box kids in, right? Just because they're not in that little box does not mean that their opinions cannot be heard or cannot be, put into these structures that we're talking about, and good conversations can be had. And that concept right there, and Trinice, I like the back to the policy piece, right? Because we're not just APs, we are APs, we're educational leaders, but we are in part of another system. We're part of a system that's there with a board, with a district level principal that we have to deal with, and we have a superintendent that's there too. So we have all these things that we're working within a system as well. But at least instructionally, if we have a system or a structure in place that says, hey, if these things come up, this is what we do about it, right? This is how we can have the conversation and get them to think critically. I really like that idea, having something in place for these things to happen, so teachers don't shy away, or like you said, or are worse, are afraid. We don't want our teachers to be afraid to talk about these
Right.
things, and we don't want to shy away from them either. That I think would be the worst. Ignoring in silence, that can't happen. This is 2022. We have to have a platform for that. So I think a lot of good things are coming out. Trinice, what everybody's saying here, definitely picking up on what everybody's laying down, and some of the more interesting structures too, just so our teachers can feel comfortable or more comfortable.
And it's interesting that all of us have been in education long enough that there are already strategies for our students to have these conversations in classrooms, right? So I am an avid type of guy. So, and I love Socratic seminars because
Absolutely.
it gives every kid has an opportunity to like really talk. And you have to really think it's not just me talking. You have to have sources. You have to talk about it, right? So I think even on agreeing with everyone, we have to make sure that those structures are in every classroom that we go into, right? Especially right now, because our students are more vocal, I think, now than they were before, because they think they have the right sources, and Wikipedia is not a real source. Wikipedia or whatever source, it's not always real. So we need to make sure that we're giving them this opportunity to have conversations so they can see that, wow, someone else has a different view. We can have this conversation. And then while we're walking down the hallway, we can probably still have a conversation, and we don't have to fight each other. And then when I come back tomorrow, I'm ready to bounce on it again. Well, how can we do this? And this can be anything we're talking about. If we're talking about things that happened during COVID, if we're talking about social injustice, if we're talking about Ukraine and Europe, we need to have factual information. And that's always been my pet peeve, because I want our students to be knowledgeable about what's going on, or knowledgeable about the world, not just, and it's fun. TikTok is fun. Things going on, that's great. But do you really know what that's about? Do you understand it? So when you walk away from me, you're going to understand it, like it or not. So I think we already have those structures, and we being educators, we have sources galore. We just need to make sure that we're implementing so that the students are able to use their critical thinking skills on a daily basis.
Yeah, and Bobo, I think you're exactly right. And here's what I want to see. I want to see this done, maybe not daily, but weekly, every year that this kid is in school. So I want to see this done in ELA. I want to see it done across the hall in science. I want to see it done across the hall in social studies. I mean, I tell you, I love ELA because it gives our kids a chance to read stories through the eyes of other people, and then to be able to have conversations about real life. and that's where, you know, that brings up this whole banning of books things and stuff. But that worries me because it doesn't allow us to have these conversations that we need to have. And so what I see, I love what you're talking about, Bobo. I would love to see us having a school-wide structure for having difficult conversations with our kids. And then that way, when one of those parents, because I'll be honest, I met a Holocaust denier last year that did not want us talking about that type of stuff. But when you can lean into a school policy and say, well, you know, I'm sorry, this is what we do, blah, 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 K through 5 or whatever. This is what my teachers are following. I'm sorry you believe that way. Here's the way that we are doing it. And then it gives us, you know, a little bit of safety to fall back on.
Thinking about that policy, do we have policies in place? Because I'm trying to think off the top of my head now. I'd have to dig and look.
I don't. I know mine don't.
As far as like a straight up platform, I don't think we have that in my district. I'm on the diversity, inclusion, and equity, you know, committee in my district as well. What we used, the chair reached out to us and said, okay, how are we going to actually have these conversations? And I read Dr. Kendi's book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, and we used the courageous conversation, you know, protocol for that specific, you know, how to have hard conversations. And these are a group of adults, stakeholders from around the, you know, the community. And that's what we utilized. And we talked about at the first meeting, and we've had really great guests, grandparents raising grandkids and transgender, you know, folks that are coming in that are sharing their stories. And we've used this kind of protocol in a way where it's to our advantage and people are listening to one another and not just talking to each other with their opinions. So that kind of board level or that kind of school committee level, courageous conversation kind of thing, that kind of protocol. If we had that in place, I think our teachers would be way more apt to.
Yes, I agree.
Dive in and hear some of these voices instead of not necessarily shy away, but kind of like just give it lip service. All right, now we're going to move on to our lesson.
Yeah,
that could be a whole entire lesson if there was a proper policy put in place.
At my district, well, my campus actually, we start the year with Restorative Circles, right? So it started out just getting to know everybody, getting into that habit of sharing and having to listen and things like that. And so now when more critical things come up, I'm able to leverage that in my discipline practices, because I really want to be a culturally responsive school leader, right? I don't just want to discipline and exclude, but I actually want discipline to be teachable moments, and that we're learning something in this atmosphere. And so Restorative Circles is critical. And I've had them with teachers and students. And it's like something that they're so used to now that they understand, like, I have to listen to what the other side is saying, not just listening to attack, but actually listening to process and understand what's happening. Because we started out with just, my favorite color is red. What is yours? And it seems so simple, but now it's like riding a bike. Now I don't have to fight with anybody, and I don't have to, you know, give the auntie mama look like you're not going to be in this meeting acting crazy, because everyone knows how it operates now, right? So these are the things that I consider and I think about. And I also thought about how critical it is for my teachers to have these systems, right? How critical it is for them to have a safe space to practice, because if they can't practice with each other and they can't trust us as APs to have their backs, then it's dead the moment that they close the door. So those are things we have to remember. It's dead. The door closes. Y'all remember them days they said something crazy to us and we just closed that door and said and we went about our business, right? So if we don't provide the structures, if we don't provide the practice, if we don't provide the I got your back, if that door is going to close, then it's over. And all your initiatives sound real good when everyone's nodding their head in a meeting, and then you ask a kid and they're like, what thing? And you're like, wait, what? And that's wasted resources. So it's all about the systems and how we're building that together for our teachers.
Trinice, do you use the talking stick in your restorative circles? Do you use a talking piece? I have and I haven't.
It was like an old tennis shoe that I brought from the house.
Some of our teachers did. We actually had a time during our pre-service where people were building their talking pieces.
Yeah.
So the interesting part to me as we're talking about it, I'm just sitting there saying it's been what, 2 years since COVID, and don't our students and our teachers really need to learn again how to re-engage with each
Oh
other?
gosh, yes.
Like
Yes.
so as we're
Yes.
talking about it, I'm like, yeah, we do need to set up these systems. And if you don't have it now, we need to start thinking about how we're going to do it for next year, even getting faculty together, during the summer, say how can we reinvent this again so that everybody's on the same page, because the last 2 years have been crazy. So we need to think about how we're going to do this.
Yeah, I don't know, where
Right.
you guys are at, but our kids pulling conversations out of my students, oh, it's like pulling, that old adage, blood from a turnip, I think. Like just getting my kids to talk, getting my kids to raise their hand and ask the teacher questions. But on the flip side, some of my teachers are really hesitant about having those conversations, about making those phone calls home. So I do love the idea of having a protocol to fall back on, because there's something comforting about a routine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm telling you,
Yes.
it is. And then you'll see it change. So I remember as a classroom teacher, my kids were talking about people running for president. And y'all remember when Kanye said he was going to run for president? And at the beginning of the year, everybody was like, Kanye this and Kanye that. And I was like, all right. By the end of the year, because we had gone through looking at primary sources and actually looking at the impact that policies have on countries and societies, my kids were having such intellectual conversations at lunchtime about why Kanye would not make a good president. That on my bad days, I was like, I actually did something right. Like, y'all don't want to vote for Kanye? Like,
That's
no,
awesome.
Yeezy, huh? But it's like, you'll start to see those small gains, right? And I think
Yeah.
those are the things we got to talk to our teachers about, is the small wins that they got. Yes. Okay, they said vote for Kanye, but at least they're talking, right? And now you can leverage that to say, but why? What has he actually done? What could he actually do in this role, right? And then by the end, they'll be like, okay, maybe I was tripping. So I think it's just reinventing and re-looking at what our teachers are actually doing and helping them to see you are doing the right things. And it takes time. These kids are real bold behind the screen. They don't know how to face the smoke. Y'all, they do not know how to face the smoke. They just like, all right, you said it, right?
Yep.
We got to teach them how to do it.
Yes, ma'am.
I've been using a lot of the manage the moment, right? With my teachers and with the students, and that's from Dean Packer over here in Massachusetts. And it was like, guys, listen, it's hard to be a middle school student right now. Like, I'd struggle with it. I tell them that when they're in my office. I would struggle being in your shoes right now, because you've got this coming at you and that coming at you, and everybody's coming at you, and I name their friends that are going to come at them with all their commentary, and their teachers coming at them. So you just got to focus up in on the moment. And in that moment, you got to make that decision. And my teachers too, I've used that multiple times now. Like, listen, I know this kid, he keeps coming back to you, same behaviors are happening. We're trying everything. Here's what we tried together. I sat with you for an hour. We're brainstorming. We're trying to do everything we can. Still not working. And this is where I say, okay, so we just got to manage the moment. It's not like we're not trying. Behavior is not controllable that way. In as much as you can't control the words coming out of my mouth, right? I can't control the words coming out of their mouth. That's not how that works. So we want, when we talk about social emotional learning, which is another current kind of event, right? It's not about this one little breathing activity. It's not about this one little thing that you do or the part of curriculum. It's about creating the safe environment to learn. Once your kids feel safe in that environment, restorative circles, restorative chats, that sort of dynamic goes down. Now we can start to learn again. Now that's social emotional learning. That's the whole student, not this one yoga stretch or exercise that goes down. Those things are great and they help physically, and those are awesome. Right? Like that's fantastic. That's not what SEL is. Another kind of thing that we had for current events that just came through in my state was they just lifted the mask mandate. So now kids can come back in with or without their mask. It's a choice. And I thought I was going to see masks, no more masks. Be surprised, some kids. It's just a safety thing now. For them. It's just a covering. Like, I'm going to wear mine down here. But the dynamic with the conversations, like Michael said, Bobo, what you said about re-engaging, it's no longer a struggle anymore. It's not a thing. It's like a lease came off of your head. I don't have
Right.
to police that anymore. I don't have to
Mhm.
tell the kid to pull it up. That's just awesome. Like
Yeah.
it feels like I can see their faces and I can see and have a conversation again. It's a different way to re-engage. And I can swear to you, I remember more names when I'm looking at a smiling face than I do at a broken eyes. I know more names are flooding back to me like, oh
I
yeah,
can't wait.
Right.
Brand new kids.
That's brand new kids. It feels good to smile and have someone else see it now instead of just the eyes behind the mask. So all those current events, all those things that are happening.
Well, we're not there yet in Oregon, so I can't wait.
Yeah, it's. I don't know if it's coming. I don't want to say that, but that's what
it's coming. It's coming.
Yeah, the governor made it a local decision, and our school committee went ahead with it. Some districts here in Massachusetts have waited for the next 2 weeks, and then they're going to go. But it's like a local decision. That's where they're at with it.
So imagine the conversation that they would have about masks. Like,
yeah.
should we wear? It's just, I just get excited when we have these structures and allow them just to talk and have real conversations.
Absolutely.
And we again, I know we shy from it, and teachers shy from it. And I understand, because a lot of times we want to have the answer, right? We want to have the right answer so they don't go astray. But the reality is, if they talk and you have the resources for them, they can make it happen, just like we did. Like, because some of the stuff. So if we're administrators and we're honest with each other, some of the stuff that we come up with it on the fly.
Absolutely.
How liberating is that? How liberating is that? I don't know. No one knows the answer to this current Ukraine Russian situation. So let's have a conversation about it. It's so simple. It's so simple, but we're so like, I don't know. I don't know if scared is the right word. We're educational academic institutions. We need to have it. And then I think we're really nailing it home with the policy and the structure.
No, I mean, you think about it, like I'm geeking out about this. Like, kids have literally they have access to every bit of knowledge ever created in the history of the world. So like we could go back and have, a Socratic seminar about something that happened 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. Just bring up a concept, have one side of the room research the pro, one side of the room research the, and when we were kids, that would have never happened because we'd have to freaking look through an encyclopedia. And I was ADD. I wasn't going to do that. But we got kids that can literally say, hey, Google, look up blah, 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 blah. And there goes my phone. It's waking up. But that's what I'm saying. Like, it's invigorating to know the amount of information that our kids have if we can teach our kids how to use it.
Yeah.
Could you imagine?
And that brings up a good point.
Go ahead, Trini.
We should start small. Yeah, we should start small. Yep. Our teachers need to start small. Start with Oreos versus Chips Ahoy, right? Like Facebook versus Instagram, TikTok versus Snap, right? Start small and build that trust and build that relationship with kids, because they're not going to want to jump in. If we start with Russia and Ukraine, they're going to be like, first of all, I don't even know where that's located on a map. So I'm out of the conversation, right?
Checked out.
I'm out. So we have to start small to build that trust. You can even start small with putting 4 items on and be like, odd one out. Which one is out? And share with your group why this one is out and why these 4 stay in, right? And then that turns into a strategy that the teacher can use to solve math problems, or to talk about historical figures or quotes from a book. Why is this one not the right quote for this, right? So it's like starting small and working your way up so that kids have that confidence. That's really what we got to do first: build confidence and trust.
Listening to the opinion of others and understanding it's okay to disagree is
empathy.
Key. It's key to everything that we do in education. And that right there, I think that just having those structures, circle it up. You circle up a class with, just like you said, Shanice, was simple as TikTok versus Snap. That's their realm. That's their world. They're going to eat that up and have an opinion, but they're going to try to argue and yell at each other first. That's where we come in as adults and say, okay, this is what we need to do, right? I just used a turtle for a talking piece, a stuffed turtle that I had. They named it. It was all going around. I want Squirt. Give me Squirt. You don't have it. Relax. It's not how that works, right? Like it's just those little things that we got. AJ, what's up?
No, but you make a really good, a valid point, Mike. And sorry, AJ, to cut you off. But I remember there for a time when I was a fourth grade teacher. Um, I taught my kids every year how to give compliments, how to accept compliments, how to problem solve, um, because
Mhm.
they don't know that type of stuff. And if nobody is teaching them that type of stuff at home, they're never going to learn it. And I think it's so stinking imperative that we make this. I'm even going to say we make this a priority, because the division that I see is not good. And if
Yeah.
if we can get kids starting as young as kindergarten to be able to talk about, kind of like Trinice said, okay, a Mars candy bar versus a Snickers. Why do you like it more? Here's why, but I can totally understand why you're saying that, and we can do that. I don't know. I think that's a big deal, and I think the protocols really would help.
Yeah, I didn't want to step on anybody's toes. I thought you guys had some amazing points here. I'm sitting here taking notes in my notebook and just enjoying the conversation here, forgetting I was actually part of it. But listen to everything here, like thinking about how we're going to, shape our educational system for our students, how we're going to put something in place that these kids feel comfortable, not about like who's around them, but just comfortable in the fact that they could talk, have a conversation, be respected, be heard, be listened to. You know, just listening to you guys share those ideas is outstanding because, too many people are putting our kids down, or, like we talked about at the beginning, they don't want to share these ideas. They don't want to bring it up in their classes. They're afraid of where the conversation is going to go to. And that does the exact opposite of what we're trying to do here. We need to give our kids a floor.
Right.
We need to let them have a say in what's going on. So simple to begin with, things that they, you know, watch on TV, do on their phones, like starting from a young age. If I can think of my kids in my own house right now, like having a conversation about what they like, you know, toppings of a pizza, like so simple to get them to talk, to debate, to research, to think critically and dive deeper. You know, those conversations, and you start them at a young age and you keep moving them up and you keep making it this district policy, these big plans. We're going to have kids who respect each other's opinions and not point fingers. Um, we're
Mhm.
living in our world. Besides the fact that we have information in our fingertips, we also have a lot of different news stations that are throwing different ideas and different
Good
stories at
point.
us
Good
24
point.
hours a day, right? No news is sharing the same idea. And I think that's a big problem for us too, because we don't want to step on toes. We don't know where people are listening to at home. We don't want to choose a side, but we have to let everybody share those thoughts and those opinions. And I think again, letting them feel comfortable that they can share those opinions is really what's going to drive our schools and the culture of our schools going forward. So I know we're getting up to the
Right.
40-minute mark here. I know we got the State of the Union, and a lot of us wanted to try to watch. So I'll let you guys roll. I'm going to sit back for a minute again. Final thoughts? Anything else you want to share before we say goodbye?
Thanks for the conversation. I needed this today.
Yes, this was good. I feel like we touched on a lot of different things, and when you open up the concept of current events, and like I said, we can even go current events that are on social media, things like that. Like our kids that would just devour that their world. Give them that platform, something they want to talk about, develop the structure. I think it's a home run every time, and you don't have to have a tangible anything out of that. I don't need a product. The product is the conversation. The product is intellectual conversation. Like Trini said, if it spills over into the cafeteria afterwards, now you're like, okay,
Right.
we have an academic learning institution again.
Mhm.
We're not just destroying the bathrooms because of the vicious licks,
Right.
going up.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think part of our job as educators is to counteract apathy. And so if we have kids that are, what's the word I want to use? We have the kids that are excited, are passionate, they have a strong opinion on something. To me, that's good because they're going to seek out information to support their opinion, right? And so we need people that are not apathetic with the current events. We need people that are tuned in, dialed in to current events, and we need people that are willing to discuss them. And I, I think education plays a role in that.
Sure.
Yeah. And I don't, this is a little plug, but I think it was phenomenal when we had Dr. Julie Hassan on, and she talked about her book being safe, seen, and stretched, right? And that's what our students need, period. As we talk about these platforms, that's all I kept thinking about, them feeling safe, them feeling seen, and then stretching them past that point. It's not just only getting the information, but what do I do with the information? Conversation I always hear the students, what,
Yeah.
where am I going to use algebra one? When am I going to use geometry? Blah, blah, blah. Because they never see when does it come to pass that I got to use it.
Sure. Sure.
So how can we make sure
Right.
that they feel safe, they feel seen, and they get stretched? Where am I going to use this? Where is this in real life? So we talked about these platforms, we talked about these current events. Yes. Where can we keep it going? And Ryan, you even mentioned about how sometimes they don't get certain manners and things from home, right? But when we were younger, school and school and home were like intertwined. So
Yeah.
what? So if it happened at school, if I'm supposed to say yes sir at school, I'm saying yes sir at home. And I know the world is different. I get it. But a lot of times, if the students don't see it at school, even though it's happening at home, we're losing them, and vice
Yeah.
versa. So my point with that is, we just need to make sure that they are seen, they are safe, and they are stretched, so that their knowledge can continue to be stretched. And I go back to the understanding. So it's not just about knowledge, because we all can have the knowledge, right? But if we don't understand it and how to use it, it means nothing. So they
Well
can
said.
have the phone, they can
Mhm.
have a phone, but it doesn't mean anything if they don't know how to use it.
Yep.
All right. So with that, let's go around as we always do one more time. Just kind of let's let everybody know where they can find you so they can have this awesome conversation and get you on their shows going forward. So Ryan, why don't I go with you? Go Ryan, Mike, and then Trinice, you can end it off. Go ahead.
All right. So yeah, if so, first off, if you are listening, if you have um, stuck through this conversation, we all appreciate you
Yes.
very, very, very much. You know, time is very finite. We only get so much in a day. Most of us here, you know, have families, kids. You know, we spend the majority of our time at school, and so when we come home, it's family time. So we really appreciate you spending your time with us tonight. So I would love to connect with anybody out there that wants to talk education. Anybody that's got a crazy idea, because I have a podcast called the Big Ed Idea Podcast, and it is for those people that are crazy enough to think that they can change the world through an education idea. And so if you've got one of those ideas, reach out to me. Yeah, everybody here. If you've got one of those ideas, reach out to me on Twitter. Next week, my website should be, fingers crossed, up and running, and it will be ryanscotted.com. So you can go over there. You can look at some of my past podcasts. You can look at how the book is going, and then you can sign up for a free giveaway. But yeah, I would love to connect with you. Look, we are in the business of changing lives, and let's build our tribe. So nice to see you.
First, I want to say, if there's anybody on this call that has a quarterback that they don't need, we definitely need one right now. But no, um, I'm at Michael Bobo 74, and I'm as Ryan. Just I want to connect. I want to continue to talk to educators all over the United States or even the world, and just keep having this great conversations. So if you hit me up on Twitter, we can start having some real conversations about things that we can change and even hook up. And Mike and AJ and Ryan, y'all don't know it yet, but I'm gonna be inviting you to Florida soon, so you can come see what we got going on, so we can have some conversations down here.
Amen.
Sounds great. Sounds great. I'm I'm
I
at
feel
AP
left
Mike
out.
Lavelle. I'm at AP Mike Lavelle Twitter land, and I'm on LinkedIn too. Denise, go ahead.
Shot to the heart.
I know.
All right. I'm Trinice Brown Warren. Whatever. I'm Trinice. Right. I'm Trinice. You guys can connect with me on Twitter at Brown Warrens. I'm always game for a good conversation. You might catch me on a good day where I got some extra time for you.
Well, Trinice, I guess I got to hit you up now. I'm here putting it in my phone right now because I left you out, so I got to make
Nope,
up for
it's
that.
over.
Yes, ma'am.
Blew it.
Yeah. Right.
You're excommunicated.
You're right.
Everybody out there, thank you so much for joining us again on the AP Roundtable. This is number 16 that we're making moves on. So we'll be back
Learn to drive.
in 2 weeks. I think that's the 15th of March with a new topic, a new crew. Appreciate Trinice, Michael, for joining us tonight. If you're out there, you're listening, whether it's live, whether it's on the recording, please make sure you reach out to us. If you want to be on the show, let us know. We're always looking for some new APs around. I'm trying to connect as many people as we can. Ryan and I are trying to create a Voxer group. So if you're on Voxer, we'll connect you there. We are trying to build this AP community, make it bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and better. So
Take over the world.
that's what we're going to do. The APs for the win. So if you're out there, you want to connect at AJ Bianco on all the social medias, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, AJ Bianco, you'll find me. All right, we're going to end this broadcast, see what's going on in the world around us. Be good, stay safe, keep having those conversations, everybody.